complex and comes out of the animal liberation movement. Derek is a CSO, community-supported organizer coordinator, and is focused on climate justice. Is a supporter of Women of Color Speak Out. So give them a please.
Thank you for opening the space, Patty. Appreciate it. Thank you. Just want to share some gratitude. Really want to, especially the station, the owners of the station, for making the space available to us. And all the volunteers who helped, and all the cooks and people helping make food available. To all of you guests, thank you for coming and showing up. To the elders who are here to support us, and all the elders who are not able to be present, just really appreciate that. To all those of you who teach, and all the teachers out there, and to call in the ancestors who are here with us, thank you, and just want to also thank the Divine for this special night. So thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
There are many CSOs taking part in this event because the CSO team has grown since the time that Zarna launched. I'm a CSO. Derek is the CSO coordinator. Antonio is soon to be launched as a CSO and sent a message from Portland. And CSO Renaissance has sent a message from Arizona. We all want to support Zarna. So many of our activist family are here today. For now, I'd like to introduce Zarna's other sisters in Women of Color Speak Out, Afrin and Yin. Afrin was on Democracy Now! For the Valve Turners and is an Ayurvedic practitioner who works at Natural Rhythms Integrative Medicine. Yin is a powerhouse organizer working on the No New Youth Jail campaign, Humbao's Not Hotels. She's organizing with Parasol and is continuing work on dismantling anti-Blackness in the Asian Pacific Islander community. And I'd also like to ask Patty to come up and share a few words about Zarna.
Hi everybody, thanks for coming in through tonight. Afrin is on her way, so safe travels for her on the journey here. I just want to, give our thanks for everyone coming through to support us, because we're able to do this work because of everyone here supporting us. And I just want to say, as when we started for Women of Color Speak Out, it was back when Shall Know happened, and it was an intense time and fighting the very gigantic Arctic rig, and that's when we convened everyone. Sarah, Zarna, Afrin, and then later Patty joined us to, be this powerhouse, to name things that needed to be named, and to bring the analysis, a system analysis that haven't been seen in this area or nationally. And the reason that I'm able to show up to a lot of grassroots organizing for the People's Party, for Block the Bunker, for No New Youth Jail, is because of my sisters that's around me, that supports me, that hold me accountable, that make sure that we are able to do our face mask and our spas while we do our meeting, like center me in this work. And that's why I'm able to show up, go to Garfield High School this week, and them telling me, to address ageism and hold me accountable. I'm able to do all of that work, and also went to Rainier Beach High School a few weeks ago also to do the Restore Justice Peacemaking Circle project with them. And, it's a lot of giving, it's a lot of emotional labor, but I wouldn't be able to do this if my sisters weren't with us. So I really appreciate y'all for supporting her so that she can support me, so that we can support each other. Thank y'all.
Okay, so for me, joining a little bit later, I had the honor of joining Women of Color Speak Out via Sarah and organizing a lot with Sarah. and I had the honor of meeting in and then meeting Zarna. And with that, we've been able, when I started joining, we were doing really, really amazing things and still are. And we even had the honor of going to Standing Rock together as a group, which was a really, really transformative experience for all of us. And I just want to say that with all of the things that I've learned from Zarna, just from being an example and just her work, like I've lost weight, I've been healthier, my immunity has been better just from even organizing around her, let alone the things that she's taught me and the things that the atmosphere and environment she's created for all of us. And I can easily say that my organizing environment is so much safer and so much more, I feel so much more included, not even just with Women of Color Speak Out, but my environment around me in general, because of how much Zarna's influenced my life and made me somebody who really would speak out about all patriarchy, not just some patriarchy, but all of it, and understand my own patriarchy. And so I think from a personal level, she's definitely attributed greatly to my life, as well as the men of color in my life around me. For some reason, all of the ones that I organize with, they either know about Yin or they know about Zarna, and they're like, okay, you work with them, okay. And then it makes them have a different amount of standards and expectations that women of color organizers have for them, our male men of color, and or femme organizers in general. And so I think that, like, we can talk about the amount of work she's done with all the different organizations, with environmental justice, with spiritual justice, all this work. But I can also say that in my personal life, it's deeply, deeply affected me too. And so I think that I'm just very grateful for the environment that you create and you manifest and you nurture and you reproduce. Thank you.
And now we get to introduce our sister Sarah, joining us via video. And a little warning from our other sisters that Sarah tends to ramble when she's emotional.
No.
So here's a little message from our sister.
Wait, right. Oh, the thing's closed. Keep the things closed. Okay, all right, I probably hit the wrong one. No. Yeah, there we go. That's what I hit wrong. Okay, here we go.
Can we do the one after this?
I think I met her pretty much on the front line, Michelle No actions. And something struck me about Zarna, something that I
Hold on, we're gonna start that again because well, we plugged the music in. I forgot to unplug the music and plug it into the computer.
It's cool. It's not good. This is how you know you're with the right people.
No one's throwing tomatoes yet.
If this is too slick, you would leave.
Wow.
You should be.
Y'all ready? Here we go. All right. Damn it. Not say that.
So I the cost.
Yeah, right.
What's up, y'all? This is Sarah, and where did I meet Zarna? I think I met her pretty much on the front line of the Shall Know actions, and something struck me about Zarna, something that I knew that she was different for a variety of reasons. Just the way that she carried herself was so divine that made me realize that I was around someone very special. And we continued to work together, and through Zarna, we created Women of Color Speak Out, and Zarna always held us in a way like a big sister or a mother, in a very nurturing way. And Zarna always made sure to do that we had self-care, that we prioritized self-care, that we realized that part of the work was the way that we treated ourselves. And that's been a really important message for us because, burnout is real. This happens a lot. And I think the way that we prevent burnout is, is take care of our spirits. And that's something that Zarna taught me that I really didn't know about before because really thought that the work was about, the campaign, the goal, whatever we're fighting for. But what Zarna taught me was that it's more than that. It's about our spirit. And that's what I mean about Zarna being divine. I mean, you can just tell, Zarna just has the essence of God. The way that she carries herself, the way you can tell that she's done the spirit work that we all need to do, and that has inspired me to do that work as well. So Zarna, there's a lot of things that I think I could say about her, but I think the one thing is that Zarna's always been there for us. Whenever anything happens, I know that I can call her and she shows up. And the way that she takes care of us, I don't know how she's able to do that because whenever I've been in a bad place, I know that I can call up Zarna and that she's going to be there. No matter what, she'll drop everything and come in. I know when my family was losing their house and we had to hurry up and sell it, Zarna came and drove like the 45 minutes out from Seattle where our house was at, and came and stayed the whole night just helping us redo our houses. And this is when I had only known her for a few months then at the time, and yet she was still willing to know that she was still willing to come and show up and take care of us. And so I think that's really what makes Zarna an amazing person. Not only is she doing the work, not only is she challenging the patriarchy in a way that I'm still learning how to do. Not only is she, engaging in not just environmental activism, but the spiritual activism. But she really takes care of people in a way that I really haven't seen before. And that's why I want to say that, really I hope that our community takes care of her in the way that she's taking care of us, because she's always there. Whenever, someone needs to get checked, whenever someone needs to be held, whenever someone needs information, she's there. And so I hope that our community can be there for her as well and take care of her so that she doesn't have to rely on any of these other capitalist systems of oppression, and that she can continue doing this work. So Zarna, thank you. I love you. And thank you so much.
One moment while we reset the camera.
Grassroots, everyone. Grassroots.
Okay, thank you, Women of Color Speak Out, for sharing about that. We'd like to now ask up to the stage Tomas Madrigal, who is a union worker and organizer with the Northwest Detention Center Resistance, an immigrant rights organizer, and an indigenous descendant of the Purepecha. Welcome.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I'm no longer an organizer with the Detention Center Resistance, but I'm still the food systems researcher for community development. And for the Union Familias Unidas por la Justicia. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about why we do this, right? I guess my vintage is 1999, 1998 to be certain, in the planning of the World Trade Organization, I guess, challenge here in Seattle. I was all of 18 years old, involved in a group called Mecha. And of all groups, the Filipinos People's Assembly was the one that brought me into the space of organizing that massive event that we had on November 30th, right, that had a significant impact and consequence for a lot of what we would do in the future. To that end, I'm an anti-capitalist. I have anarchist tendencies. And in academics, the work that I advance is autonomous Marxist, right? And that carries a lot of weight in terms of the ancestors that came before us that we stand, and advance the work that we have for. I wanted to focus on one thing that I see in this space, right? I recognize a lot of you, and I recognize you from being warriors on the front line, right? And Zarna, one of those folks. And I wanted to share something that Subcomandante Insurgente Marcos shared about what the essence of a warrior is in the context of this struggle against neoliberal capitalism. One, to be constantly willing to learn and to do. Two, to be at the service of a material cause. Three, to respect our ancestors and those who came before us. And four, to exist for the good of humanity. And five, to build an arsenal of tools like the sciences, technical knowledge, and the arts, and most of all, our word, our palabra, our ability to follow through with what we say that we're going to do. And I think that Women of Color Speak Out, and in particular Zarna, has been someone that has stood by the word that she gives the world and follows through, right? And all of those five things are essential to our understanding of what being and belonging in this space with other warriors means, right? And so when I think of you, right, when I think of the rest of you that I might not engage except on the front line, right? Those are the things that I'm holding you up to, right? And those are the things that we should all hold each other up to, right? At the bottom of it, as was shared with us, is dignity. Because in dignity, respect for yourself, for others, and for the environment, there's room for everybody, right? And with that in mind, I've gotten a chance to work with some of you, right? Rashad being one of the people that has stepped up to help support the development of what we called at one point masculinity circles. Right now, we're trying to push the binary and think of it more as anti-patriarchal circles, right? And the idea of this came out of the need, as mentioned before, I'm part of some very strong movement organizations, and part of the evaluation of the work I was doing was advancing measuring what was the thing that was most significant, that was holding us back from being at 100%, right? As Yin had shared earlier with me this evening, we're working at about 10% of our capacity. And in particular in Seattle, one of the things that has consistently been holding us back from doing what we can do is this issue of heteropatriarchy, this issue of toxic masculinity, and the way that we treat each other, right? and the way that we have inherited those aspects of death, right? Of social death. In the words of an elder, Juan Chavez Alonso, who passed away, who's a Purepecha elder, our work is to advance and to defend projects of life, right? And that is what we're asking you to do right now, right? In committing to support Zarna in her role as a community-supported organizer, we're not asking you just to throw your money away. We're asking you to invest in those projects of life that Zarna has taken up and has demonstrated she has the capacity to do, right? And all of us have a little piece that we can support, whether it's supporting you with dealing with all of the trolls and the police that seem to address you, and otherwise. I'm gonna cede the floor to Rashad, and he'll get to talk to you a little bit more about some of the issues that we've been able to do.
We're now going to have RC come up to this stage. He's a Black liberation activist, has worked on anti-gentrification and Block the Bunker, and has been a spiritual activist for years, even before it was cool to be a spiritual activist.
Yeah, who's the tall guy here? Honored to be able to share a few words just on behalf of this effort today to support Zarna and CSO work here in Seattle. And I want to particularly bring attention to just think, as Tomas was talking about, what it means to be a warrior in today's world and do this work. I remember meeting with Zarna following some of the harassment Zarna faced after calling out the sexual harassment she received at City Hall. And she was trolled online and received a lot of very disturbing messages and even threats from many places. And when given a choice, what would she do? She didn't back down and she didn't leave Seattle. She started a series of responding to all of that misinformation and the calculated harassment that was being done, and the threats and targeting, and calling out patriarchy and how it's showing up throughout society, throughout all of our close, intimate circles, our activist spaces, and how it shows up in men and those that move with masculine energy. It was at that time that Zarna not only took the effort to speak up, but directed such a beautiful series. And I imagine most folks here have likely observed or seen this series, which I know has been now used as an educational tool in places around the country. I was asked to be one of the men to speak out against patriarchy and just to speak out against how toxic masculinity can show up. Before Zarna brought me in to take part of this project, I didn't fully conceive or understand the importance of being someone that is moves with masculine energy and would identify as a man and doing this work, speaking out against patriarchy, because so often we see our sisters at the front line holding this conversation. And that has been a learning experience for me. And through it, not only understanding the importance and the power of it, but how so far we are already behind, how so much more work we have to do, particularly as those with masculine folks, in addressing patriarchy. And so what has followed through that, as Tomas said, was bringing attention to were these masculinity circles, or now these circles to address anti-patriarchy across binaries that are being formed and worked on here in Seattle, and in particular one that we have been working on is one for men of color, as we know some of the ways this shows up looks different by community. One thing that I've grown so much from this experience is seeing how it's not only affects us at a very systemic level, but on a very intimate, personal level. And as I was being introduced, I came across spiritualism over a decade ago, and it really had played a huge role in my formation and growth and development. And so to meet folks like Zarna and other folks in our region advocating not only for activism, but spiritual activism, what more holistic approaches are we not only looking to disrupt what's harming our communities and not only build what we vision is healthy and what our communities need, but what do we need on a very personal level to be fully whole and in ourselves. And this work to address patriarchy has really allowed me to become, to grow into a better person. And it's still a process, but learning how to connect with other men, learning how to connect with with other aspects of myself, my personality and my emotions, I feel I might be had limited had I not come across Zarna. And I think the work that Zarna is doing is more than just working on the systemic change and having such an incredible analysis that can tie intersections with veganism and patriarchy together. But Zarna's growing a lot of us in the movement, growing a lot of the leaders that are already doing this work. And as we all grow into our better versions and our better selves, the hope for the future I see is bright. When we're supporting that type of leadership, when we're supporting this work that is taking place here in Seattle, and Zarna, we know is more than Seattle, is doing work regionally, nationally, and even has international connections. So this is the work that we're looking to support when we support our CSO tonight. So thank you.
Should we just roll it?
Yeah, do you want to? Wait, do you want to?
Somebody should set it up.
Actually, could you introduce the video?
Sure. I don't know much about it. Is there a script?
Do you want to
just say?
Do you want to just introduce him? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
This next video we're gonna watch is from Renaissance, who's another very powerful person based in Arizona that has been doing work to address, has just addressing systems of oppression, and he is a CSO now. So.
What's up, y'all? Renaissance here. Power to the people. I'm making this video today to talk to you about my comrade, my sister in arms, sister in the struggle, Zarna. We share values in just about most everything, and the things that we're concerned about are almost in perfect alignment. So everywhere we go, we are. We're always fighting for the same things, no matter where we are in the world. I think one of the best ways to tell you about my relationship with Zarna is to tell you a story. Now, there was a time when she and I were on a panel together and we were talking about our work. And instead of saying what I just said to you about us sharing the same values and being concerned about the same issues, and so we occupied many of the same spaces, fighting the same struggles alongside the same allies and comrades. I said one day, I couldn't escape from her even if I wanted to. Part of Zarna's work is checking patriarchy. Like that's a life goal, is to dismantle the toxic masculinity that exists within our planet. Real talk, it's also one of my goals. Except I don't always see all of the ways that I participate in the oppression of women or gender nonconforming people. And so Z, she comes up to me and she tells me about how the way I phrased my words actually hurt her. And it took me back because none of that was my intent. And what is my position? What is my role? What is my duty to do? My first duty is to listen. My second duty is to change my behavior. So like, I take that and I analyze that because my intention was to do good. And so what I had to really think about doing was getting to the heart of things. It's that type of work that Zarna's engaged in, with tearing apart the patriarchy. And it's not easy, you know. Most of the people, even when I walk up and check folks, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen. They don't want to do nothing. And it's like slamming our heads against a battering ram or running up against a tank or something like that. It just wants to just blow right on over, right on past, you know, because this male fragility, this white fragility just erupts into anger and to disregard, and it continues to seek to destroy, to colonize, to conquest everything that's in its path. That is difficult work. And I remember when women of color Speak Out first, you know, began organizing, and Sarah, Tacola, Yin, Zarna, and Afrin, you know, they pulled me in and we started doing all this work together. Then it got big, and it got beautiful. And now what's happening, what's forming underneath of all of that is a men of color speak out with the guidance of women of color in challenging male patriarchy, because it is the duty and the role of men to check that. And we haven't even scratched the surface of getting into all of the climate justice and the food justice work that's going on. But if we're not tearing apart the patriarchy that's underneath of that, which is bigger, better, faster, more, newer, now, everything that capitalism is, the structure, the economic structure that is destroying our planet, separating us from connection with our earth and one another, then we're never going to be able to get to the solutions that we need in order to solve climate change and to get to actual food justice, to tear apart the prison industrial complex. And I just wanted to share with y'all my heart today about how connected I am with Zarna and all of her work, and how much trust and faith that I have in everything she is doing and the people that she works with. Power to the people. Stay strong. Be whole. The soul was a part of our work too. Renaissance, out. Going.
It's now time to give you all some of the news that's been happening in the movement. This is pretty heavy, but you know that Zarna's work by necessity is heavy at times. While it's heavy, it's also an opportunity for growth and learning and decent, accountable community. It's not easy smashing the patriarchy, particularly when the patriarchy is right in our own movement. And I'm now going to read a statement from the CSOs regarding the Backbone Campaign's patriarchy. Dear community, we would like you to know that for the last 2 years, CSO Zarna Joshi has been engaged in working with Backbone Campaign, and particularly Bill Moyer, on their patriarchy and the harm they have done to women, both white and of color, and femme people in the movement. Bill has not listened to her, rather has given lip service to the ideas that she has presented to him. Backbone Campaign has not done any anti-patriarchy trainings, despite Zarna telling them for 2 years that they must do so. They have not showed up to her events about patriarchy or toxic masculinity, nor shown any interest in being accountable to that process. Backbone Campaign's dismissal of their responsibility showed up in a very toxic way this year at their Localize This action camp on Vashon Island. There was a sexual predator at this camp named Scott Sibler, who at the time was also on their board of directors. He was preying on many women in the camp. He was becoming physically close to them without their consent, forcing some of them to be alone with him, trying to intimidate them into silence, and ultimately victim blaming, isolating, gaslighting, and lying about his actions to the entire camp. Not only did Bill Moyer not stop Scott's predatory behavior in a timely manner, he actively protected him by trying to silence the women who called for gender caucuses to talk about radical consent. Bill scheduled an action planning meeting at the same time as the Radical Consent Caucus, thereby ensuring that most of the women were not at the Radical Consent Caucus and thus learned nothing of what had happened. The women and femme people, meanwhile, learned that Scott had preyed on many of them and demanded that Backbone Campaign engage in immediate anti-patriarchy training within 90 days of the camp. Zarna tried for the whole week to stop Scott from preying on the women. She asked both Carlo Voli and Bill Moyer to help her. Both these white males not only failed to stop Scott, they also deliberately dismissed her concerns and ignores her calls for help. Bill, when pushed, took Scott out on his boat to talk, then brought Scott back to camp. Scott then went around victim blaming the women to isolate and silence them by saying that they were gossiping. Some women were so traumatized and afraid for their safety that they left the camp. Bill was ultimately forced by CSO Renaissance and CSO Zarna to remove Scott from the camp, but Bill did not even find this predator. He did not even go find this predator to physically remove him from the grounds, nor make arrangements to ensure that Scott was escorted out of the facility for the safety of others. Bill called Scott on the phone. Another man in the camp found Scott and walked him out, but not because Bill had asked that man to do so. On the last day of camp, the day after Scott was removed, Zarna risked her own safety by publicly calling out Carlo Voli and Bill Moyer for their callous and contemptuous dismissal of the safety of women. She made it clear that they and Backbone Campaign must take anti-patriarchy training because they are a danger to women and the movement as a whole. She made it clear that they must do continuous anti-patriarchy work over the long term to dismantle their internal patriarchy and patriarchy in the wider movement. Bill was not in that conversation because he refused to be there. Neither of these white males have yet bothered to do any anti-patriarchy training, even though Carlo keeps telling people that he wants to do so. Carlo keeps expecting other people to find resources for him, but ignores them when they show him resources. He has actively ignored calls from people in the community to listen to the work of Zarna and Women of Color Speak Out as his guide for anti-patriarchy work. Bill Moyer has tried to silence the issue again and again since camp. He didn't inform the rest of Backbone's board of directors what Scott had done. Other people had to inform the board. It took Backbone Campaign over 1.5 months to remove Scott from the board because Bill wanted to protect him. Backbone Campaign has still not done any anti-patriarchy training. This is why we CSOs demand that Backbone Campaign do this work, including their board, their employees, and their volunteers. The harm that Bill and Backbone Campaign have done to women in the movement, particularly women of color and Indigenous women, is exactly the reason why Zarna became a CSO in the first place. She is trying to help stop their behavior and is now publicly demanding it. Zarna is risking her own safety by doing this, as Backbone Campaign could retaliate by trying to push her off the CSO platform. We CSOs support her because CSOs are autonomous change makers who work without being restrained by institutional rules or regulations. That's why we signed up to be CSOs. We are community-supported organizers, organizing our communities without being told what to do or silenced by anyone. That's why we demand that Backbone Campaign take continuous anti-patriarchy training over the long term for their members, staff, and board, make anti-patriarchy training a fixture at every action camp, offer continuous anti-patriarchy training to the public so that the wider movement can learn how to dismantle patriarchy, remove Bill Moyer from the position of Executive Director of Backbone Campaign, instate a radical woman, queer, trans person of color, or Indigenous woman, queer, trans person in the position of Executive Director of Backbone Campaign, and make sure that Backbone campaign pays substantially every woman, femme, and person of color involved in training them in anti-patriarchy. Sincerely, CSO Zarna, Renaissance, and Amanda.
Just want to take 15 seconds to hold what Amanda has shared with us. Thank you for reading that statement. We've heard a lot from a lot of people about how this movement is being shaped by women of color and the leadership of indigenous people and trans and non-gender conforming people. And this is one example of many of how this plays out. Another one of my roles, in addition to supporting the community-supported organizers, is I'm on the board of Backbone Campaign. So I've been in this conversation. And I'm committed to taking the message that the CSOs have read. This is the first time it's being shared publicly to you all. And to bring this to the board, wearing my board hat, and to make sure that we follow through on these commitments and asks, and to have the conversation in the best way possible. I have to challenge my own internalized patriarchy and my role in this, and so, but I also want to make myself available to take some of the pressure off of the leadership of women. So if anybody wants to approach me or address any of this so that we don't further cause trauma and harm to women who've already been in this conversation a lot, I make myself available, so just hit me up afterward. So just wanted to name that. So we all know that the work that Zarna does is really serious, and that she has practically no time for fun at all. But somehow she manages to insert fun into things. So watch this video and see what we mean.
I'm happy to get on the internet to get this video, so.
Oh, really? It's not on the internet.
Huh?
It's not on the internet.
Well, it says I have to be connected to the internet to get the answer. So it's still not done yet. I have to.
Grassroots.
Grassroots.
This is how you know. This is how you know you're in the right place.
So while that's happening, should we see? Afra, would you be willing to share a few words?
Well, if we're going to talk about fun, I can speak to the fun that we've had. My experience of Zarna has been sisterhood. My experience of Zarna has been warm love and care in an unconditional way. My experience of being in that sisterhood has been being held in a way that is, you know, the word loyalty has taken on a whole different meaning to me through my sisterhood with Zarna. She has shown up when I didn't expect her to show up, or in ways that I didn't expect her to show up. 2.5 years ago, I lived in a bubble of privilege. I lived in a bubble really not about this kind of work at all. I was not radical, or I wasn't actively decolonizing myself. And I walked into an Earth Day celebration, and Zarna was on the stage, and I heard her speak, and I was like, I want to go talk to her. And I was like, I'm from India too. I want to hang out with you. And since then, and you know, it started off being climate activism when, you know, we were first working together because Shell was here and we were telling them to go away.
But through that work of being kind of mentored or protected and guided by Zarna, I went through that process of recognizing my own privilege, recognizing the work that I had to do to transform my internalized, patriarchy and colonization and all of that, all of that difficult work that is scary and terrifying and uncomfortable. And being around Zarna has made me recognize that being uncomfortable is important. Because where we are comfortable right now is what's killing us. And our convenience is what's brought us to this brink. And so facing that discomfort and being willing to work through that is the work we need to do. We share a similar spiritual heritage, both being from India. And so that is another deep connection that I value in this work, in the work of building a different world. Is not just about us stopping driving and changing at the superficial level, but really deeper. I practice Ayurveda, which is the medicine from India, and the way that medicine works is to identify the root cause of disease and the root cause of illness. And it almost literally, in a way, comes down to recognizing that it comes from a disconnect with your deeper self. And that is how Zarna talks about patriarchy, because it's our disconnect with ourselves from recognizing that we are whole when we are in love and we are looking after each other and we're looking after the world. And so from that day of seeing her on stage and thinking that I was going to be some kind of activist if I hung out with her, to really realizing that it was going to be deeper than that and transforming who I am and how I see myself and how I show up in the world. And I couldn't be more grateful to know you, and I really hope all of you, do what you can to support her and all the CSOs, and watch out. Watch out for her.
There's two of them working.
Yeah, we can move on. Well, while you're doing that, could you try and see if that works? Like while you move on.
I've done everything. It's a different program.
Oh, really?
It's not happening on my computer. It's not gonna come through. There's two of them that are gonna be like that. I think Bobby Seawater is gonna be not viewable either, so.
Okay, thank you for your efforts. I know how it is to be behind the stage and working on all the machinations, and it really is the people who run sound and make it possible for us to even hear what's going on. How many of you have been to actions where you can't hear anything? Yeah. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm still working it, so a miracle might happen.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I want to share a few words from the heart about Zarna. This is my turn now that I'm stepping down from my role as MC and just co-MC. Thank you, Amanda. And just to share a little tiny story. I guess at the core of it is when we were at Sailor Sea Pioneers, and there was a lot of white fragility from social change makers. And that was when I had already been doing race and social justice work alongside my environmental and climate work for a long time. But I have to tell you, in 3 days, I got 2 years worth of training. And since then, with the context of supporting the emergence of Women of Color Speak Out, I've had a connection to a community to support me in my journey. And even my son. So my son, he's now 4 years old, and he's a budding little cute climate justice activist. And just a tiny little thing that makes all the difference in the world is, so I'm part of an affinity group called Bike Train.
Yeah.
Bike Train! And so we were at the Quinault Indian Nation, standing in solidarity with people fighting the Westway Oil Terminal. So it's one of the 15 oil by rail terminal projects that we've been fighting for the last few years. And it was a grassroots mobilization, and there was this opportunity to speak, kind of the open mic after Indigenous people had done all the blessings and all the protocols. Then there was this opportunity for anyone in the community to share. And I was all scared. I was like, I'm not going to say anything. And Zarna's standing there just with the light, and it's just inviting us all to come speak. And my son was like, I'll speak too. And this is a year and a half ago. He didn't even speak. So he's out there in front of the camp in the front, and he's so little. I had to pick him up and hold him up to the mic. And Dupper Nutter got a great photo of this of Trevor, speaking out, and he's like, blah 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 blah. Like, okay, what's he saying? I don't know. I'm like, say no oil. He goes, no oil. I was like, yeah, it's so great. And so that was just an example of how this approach to organizing that's human-based and it's spiritual and it's so holistic and relational is just lifting everybody up. And so that's my story. And I want to use this opportunity and the story it really just to bring us to what we're here for, which is really to support Zarna. And so I'm going to ask for each of you, if you have the wherewithal or you've heard all these stories, if you could contribute financially to help support Zarna, because she's showing up for us. We're showing up for each other, but she's showing up for us too. So we have these donation envelopes that we'll pass out. Amanda, thank you so much. And we have pens, and there's several ways to donate. Bob, I don't know if you have the ability to put up that slide about the fundraising.
Oh, let me see. I'll have to bump out of what we're doing here. We're trying to.
Yeah, no worries. I'll explain how this works. So on these cards, you can do a few different ways of donating. So if you have a credit card, you can just enter your details and stick the card in the envelope and seal it, and that will, and the pens are in here. And so you could do credit card, you could do check. If you make a check out to Backbone Campaign, put in the memo Zarna in the memo, CSO Zarna in the memo. And if you are not sure how you want to move forward right now, the address is on the card too. You can mail it in. But if at all possible, we'd love to have a count so we can let Zarna know how we're supporting her. The other thing is you can make a monthly recurring donation. That's the most important way. If you were to give, $100 or $300 now, another way to do that is $10 or $20 or $50 a month. So however you can contribute on a monthly basis gives Zarna knowledge that there's dedicated funds to help support this work. So I just want to give you like a few minutes to fill these out. And if you have any questions afterward, just holler at me. So thank you so much. Yeah, the information as well, if you want to donate online, is over here, and there's a PayPal link for that. But yeah.
So we already heard from her. Oh, that's yours. Yeah, that's yours. That is yours.
I'll give people a minute and then.
And hang tight, there's going to be Annette Hotstein giving a talk, there's going to be Zarna giving a talk, and we're going to do this beautiful lotus petal thing at the end. So if you have the ability to stick around, please stay.
Yeah, it's a little more.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can just hang them up and we'll put them over here in a safe place back here. Thank you.
Well, I think that can I get Johnson? But I have to get Johnson. Thank you very much.
Okay, so welcome to another podcast.
And then so yeah, and then another video, and then yes. Yeah, that's, yeah, we're gonna do circle and then we're gonna do photos. So yes, I'm glad I know, right?
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much.
Once everyone has done what they need to with donations, books, and getting food, we're gonna turn on the video. It's working now. Yay! Okay, this is Zarna's CSO video that we were talking about earlier.
Of women of color speak out from the front lines and white fragility.
There we go.
These are a few of my favorite things. You must not forget that I am a professional victim.
I'm happy to help. I'm headed for a little bit by 2,000 miles and 2 feet of snow, but I'm more than happy to do what I can to be helpful with that.
Yeah, you know, I totally understand being hamstrung by 3,000 miles and 2 feet of snow. We've been hamstrung by institutionalized racism, patriarchy, colonization, and capitalism. We've been hamstrung by those things for the last 500 years. And then look at who these athletes think they are. And when you use the word patriarchy, people immediately assume that you're a man-hater. I assure you I'm not a man-hater. Some of my friends are male. Some of them are even white. Some of them are even straight. And some of them are even cis. Some of them are even cis straight white men. I assure you I'm not a man-hater. I'm all for replacing capitalism. But how do you respond to the fact that the other large capitalist countries have much lower carbon emissions, less than half per person as the US? Because America is incredibly selfish and has not been listening to the facts of climate change. The other thing to say is that this is utter nonsense because the Industrial Revolution was begun by Britain and France and Germany, and they started us on this path to destruction. So this idea that, oh, but now they don't have that much, that doesn't mean they're not guilty. They are all guilty. Because of the snow, apparently. Because of the snow, they're not.
No, I'll be right back.
Right back in another 2 minutes.
Oh, that woman was just so.
She says that it's taking time to talk to people in DC because of the snow.
That was 2016.
She said they actually are having a close back then. It may be possible, however, that some of the staff hasn't showed up back at DC.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they're not working here, they're not going to work Often conflict comes up in the winter. And my experiences often is that it will come in the winter. The reason why is because during the summer, you're so busy getting out there doing actions. You just go, and then during the winter, you have time to stop and think about all the ways that everyone else got on your nerves. And then you're like, oh, I'm really angry.
I know that you guys really hate working, but it's really easy because you have a million witnesses, you have his name, you have his information. So right here, right now, if an officer wants to talk to you, I happen to be talking to an officer right now, am I not? Yeah. So why are you not writing this down?
Free will hits the bone. Together we will bring down the empire.
You expect us to talk about it.
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. Way out control of this one. I have no control of the patriarchy.
This is amazing. It's amazing that on January 1st, on a Sunday, people showed up to talk philosophy and divine masculinity. In a culture that is so toxic, and in a culture where you are expected to be at home hungover right now. Nothing is wrong. Shutting down. She said, my husband, I think that maybe my dear writing them. Ignore patriarchy. To be masculine doesn't mean, okay, let's figure out how to be a man. No, that's not the point. It would be nice if men did figure that out. But we practice spiritually. We practice every day. With memory, with steadfastness, with patience. That helps to lessen the time we have to do that. I'm not kidding. It's a very practical concern.
This video because we need to talk.
And it's now time to hear from our elders. Zarna works with many elders in the movement, such as Annette Clapstein, who we invite to the stage. Annette is a ballot turner, a raging granny, a water protector, a veteran of Shell No, and was one of the first to blockade an oil train in the Northwest region.
Yep, and I'm old and I also tend to ramble, so fortunately we have a timekeeper. I'm honored to be asked to speak here today. I first met Zarna, I think, about
4 years ago at when we were organizing around KXL. That was the very beginning. And the first meeting I saw her at, she was outspoken and eloquent, and I was like, yeah, that's somebody that, you know, I can really relate to. And I've often referred to her as my spiritual daughter because I am not so eloquent, but I am outspoken and I say exactly what I think. So, so we've been on many adventures together. You saw part of one there where we attempted to get Patty Murray. Well, we attempted to get a meeting with Patty Murray, which we never did get. And even just to get her staff to talk to us, they literally went in the back and hid for hours. And we sat out in the lobby and read our letters as loud as we could. And eventually, because Zarna is amazingly persistent, they finally came out and agreed to a meeting with us after, what, 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. So we've been through a lot of adventures together. Zarna was on my first direct action, my first arrest. She volunteered to wake me up in the morning and give me coffee because I'm not a very nice person when I first wake up. So she's a very brave soul. And, you know, we've just done a lot of stuff. This past year has been a hard year for me because I did shut down some oil pipelines a year ago, and I've had to go. And I'm still facing felony charges, and I've had to run around talking to a lot of audiences. And to be honest, that was the part I didn't really think about. I thought about the going to jail part and decided I was okay with that because I'm 65 years old and I care deeply what kind of a world I'm leaving to my children and to all children and to future generations, and there simply won't be a living planet if we don't put a stop to the fossil fuel industry. And so I was okay with the going to jail part. I just didn't think through the sort of being a weird sort of celebrity and having to go around and talk to people. So, and I also know that Zarna has had a tough year, and we haven't been able to spend as much time together this year. During Shell No, we saw each other all the time, which was awesome. But she's been stalked, she's been doxxed, she's been, you know, trolled online and had to deal with a lot of horrible stuff. And I have been thinking a lot about love and rage. And I know that, you know, I won't speak for you because you are well able to speak for yourself, but I know that you have been tone policed and told not to be so angry. And I also have had that experience this year. And I had a person tell me that anger is violence, and you just cannot be angry because it's just violence. And I was like, don't you think there's such a thing as righteous anger? And she said, no. And I was just like, I don't even know how to talk to you then, because you know, what I believe is, yes, there is a form of rage that comes from hate. That's one kind of rage. But there is a rage that comes from love. And if you deeply love our Mother Earth, your family, your friends, your comrades, your community, your children, you cannot help but be enraged in this terrible time we live in, where, you know, capitalism has always been horrible and is at its worst ever, and colonialism still exists and has taken other forms and pretends it doesn't exist, but it's still there, and patriarchy still exists, and, you know, we basically have a system that is out to destroy life on this planet. And if you are not hangry, I think you are, numb or ignoring something or not fully alive. And I know that when Zarna is angry, when she has rage, it comes from a place of deep love. And, I don't see how you can be alive and, love deeply and not be enraged. So I ask again, all of you, if you have any money to spare, this is the best place to put it. You put it into your community supported organizers, because I can tell you for sure those big nonprofits, they get plenty of money from everybody. We need to support our own local community organizers who are doing the most important work there is. And I will say that in Seattle, it is women of color who are doing the most amazing, important, innovative, and effective organizing, and you need to support these folks. So please, if you've got any money to spare, and, if you haven't already filled out your card, do it. And if you have cash laying around, go put it in the jar over there, because this is the most important work going on in Seattle right now and in the country. And I have also a letter from an elder of the Miccosukee tribe in Florida, and Zarna has worked with this elder. His name is Bobby Billy, and he sent this letter to be read here tonight, and I will read it. It says, Council of the Original Miccosukee Seminole Nation Aboriginal Peoples, Dear Zarna, as one of the clan leaders and spiritual leader, Council of the Original Miccosukee Seminole Nation Aboriginal Peoples, I extend my deep appreciation to you and Ryan for the very professional work that you and Ryan conducted during your interviews with me earlier this year in Echebonic. I probably mispronounced that, I apologize. I very much appreciated yours and Ryan's sensitivity in regards to working with Aboriginal Indigenous peoples, resulting in 2 videos that I feel express the concerns of our nation. You taking the time to understand the messages that needed to be conveyed, and your non-intrusive way of working allowed the interviews to be comfortable for me. I look forward to being able to spend more time with you and other members of your organization in the near future to continue our work together and strengthen our common values in our efforts to defend and protect our natural areas, natural systems, and wildlife. Again, thank you, and Ryan, for your support and friendship. Bobby C. Billy, one of the clan leaders and spiritual leader, Council of the Original Miccosukee Seminole Nation Aboriginal Peoples. And I believe there is a film. Is this one working?
Oh, let's see.
There's a film called Water that Zarna made with this elder.
Okay.
It needs to be open.
Okay.
Yes, that's it.
Start that over again, the audio.
Can you imagine?
Well, it turns out there are people standing by Fort Drum Creek.
Yeah.
Some of them are brown.
It's just like killing your mom in front of you. Or just raping your mom in front of you, and you can't be able to do anything. That's how I felt.
So this is what the opposite bank looks like. This is the creek untouched.
Yeah.
And over there is where they brought the pipeline.
Yeah. And I grew up around here. It's right across right there.
So your people's ceremonial land is literally right here.
Yeah. And the water also got a lot of fish, catfish, bass, bram, different kind of bram, and then also like turtles and shrimps and all kinds of stuff because the fish have to have the food to survive. It can't be just the fish survive. So all different kind of the life in the water.
Which should maybe like a black spot here and there, that's like a wetland. Right there. And you can even see there's like a couple.
Yeah. When you see a light color, they got the higher ground.
It's rainy, but it's all dry. And this is one of the few like watering holes that we still have in this area, right?
Yeah. But some places, but here, supposedly above those rocks. Because the canal is right there on the other side of the road.
So the canals are redirecting the water away from the land.
When you see those rocks under there, like a floodway goes through, so it makes up all over the wetland. Deep water.
So really the water should be up to where those rocks are.
Yeah.
And underneath you have all these networks of waterways, but they're being drained.
Yeah. And when they cut them like that, and they cut that pressure to go into those different areas.
Right.
Especially with long big canals like that.
Yeah.
Just like you're ripping it off to your wetland.
Right.
It won't pump us anymore.
And there's no moisture in the land to become the clouds to rain
It's rain anymore. And the big idea was drain the big Cypress and Everglades area to build a city. So this one goes all the way up to almost to the ocean, open Negro area.
Right.
So that's what it is. It's supposed to be raining by now, but because of the canals and the moist part in the area supposed to be wetland. Because that cycles go ups and downs, so that's why you don't produce the rain.
So because of the canals and because they've been taking the water out of the land, we're in more of a drought.
Yeah, and then like the meadows up there, so they don't produce the moist, so they don't make a rain.
Right.
So that's what causes it. Cycle from nature to the way the creator has created.
Right.
The human involved, I think that's what causes the rainy season or winters and all those things corrupt.
What time is the rainy season normally during the
You
year?
should be doing it now.
Now, so like May, June?
Yeah.
To call it over here.
The gas blow up and affect the drinking water because the state of Florida is a lot of spring and all the rivers and all those goes everywhere, not just this area either. So that's how much it's going to affect something happens with pipe. The people don't see that far. It just come and collect the money and put the pipe in and let it. So we're not giving up on it yet. We're asking to help us to pull the pipe out so we can plant the trees back. To us, it's bad what they're doing, not only just the area, but throughout the state of Florida and the Mother Earth, what they're doing. We grow up over this, and we see those things happen. It just breaks our heart. The law is not protecting the future of life.
Whose law do you follow?
The creators, which is what we call a natural law, that which is protect the life, his creation. So that's what we believe. So we're trying to come back and establish like we had before. So that's what we're trying to do.
So the indigenous people are trying to reclaim their territory.
We're not really reclaiming, but we just want to go back where we used to be.
Right.
We know it still belongs to us.
Sounds like something's living there.
The bullfrog telling us we're still here.
Yeah. The bullfrog resisting.
Yeah.
Beautiful video. Thank you for going and bringing those stories back to us. These are the stories from the front line action and people like Zarna and others who bring these stories we didn't even know. So thank you. So Manny Vidal was to be our guest of honor. He was planning to drive up from California, but the car replace, surprisingly, took all of his money just yesterday, and he didn't have any funds left to come up. He sent a message to us. He's so sorry to miss Sarah and miss meeting all of us. Manuel is a student in Crescent City, an indigenous youth leader. He's working to decolonize the borders, smash patriarchy, and resist pipelines. So just bringing in his spirit of Manny.
So we've now heard messages from Arizona, California, Florida. We've heard from activist family members from so many different movements over this region. The time has finally come to bring Zarna up. She needs no more introduction. You all know who she is.
Om Shri Krishnaaya Namaha. Shri Krishna Sharanam. Shri Krishna Sharanam. Shri Krishna Sharanam. Giving thanks to my parents, to my gurus, to the divine, to all of you, acknowledging that we are on stolen Duwamish land. Giving thanks to Bob and Gabe for doing the sound and the tech. Giving thanks to Soya and KW for the incredible food. To Lisa and Granny and Annette for the bake sale. To my sisters and women of color speak out for all of their support. To my brother and sister Sarah and Michael in Arizona and their messages of love and support. To Manny for being an incredible youth leader, to Kwan for sitting outside and being the door greeter and getting everyone a name tag, to John, who is the photographer, who also, by the way, edited all of those videos that you saw today, and edited the Donna Response videos. I could not do any of this without John's love and support and friendship, and thank you so much, John. People have no idea how you are just a rock for me and for the whole movement, and how you do it so quietly and so humbly and with such love. And to thank all of my brothers and sisters who are speakers here, for all of the people who wanted to be here and couldn't be here, for all of the people who didn't say anything or do anything but quietly donated online, I am able to pay rent because of you. And that's not a small thing. That's not a small thing. So thank you. Last time we did this, the first fundraiser that I had, it was 1.5 years ago, it was when I first launched as a CSO. At that time, all of the CSOs previously had been white cis males. I was the first person of color and the first woman. And when I became a CSO, it was my mission to redirect the CSO platform so that it would uplift people of color, it would uplift women, queer, and trans people. And that is why, till date, all of the CSOs who have been launched after me were all people of color and or women. And indigenous people. And there's still a great deal of work to do in order to bring in more queer people, more trans people, people of all backgrounds. There's still a lot of work to do, and those are in the pipeline. But Antonio Zamora will soon be launching as a CSO in Portland, and so I want to send love to him. And he has also sent love and support. He's been my brother for many years now, so I want to bring his spirit into this room as well. So when I first did a fundraiser 1.5 years ago, I read out a passage of one of my favorite books because it sums up what is in my heart about the work that I do and why I do it and why I work with all of you and why despite the obstacles that might come up, despite the pain of the struggle, why I do it. And the book is called Yagna by Pratibha Rai. And I'll post the link online if you want to go read it. It's one of my favorite books in the whole world. And it's the story of a woman called Draupadi, and she's in our scriptures from ancient India. And she was a dark-skinned woman, and she was a fighter for justice. And she wouldn't shut up. She refused. And because she was such a fighter for justice, because she spoke out, because she defended the dignity of women, she was attacked. And she was attacked again and again and again by patriarchal forces who wanted to shut her up. And it hurt. It hurt a lot. And she was a devotee of Krishna. That is my path also. I am a devotee of Krishna. And she was a devotee of Krishna. And while she was going through all of this pain, Krishna was always there. He was always supporting her. Krishna is basically the name of the divine masculine that I follow. There are many, many names. And you might have whatever name that you follow, whether you call it Mother Earth, whether you call it Spirit, whether you call it Creator, whether you call it quantum physics, I don't care, it's up to you. I call it Krishna. And so in this book, it describes this moment in Draupadi's life when she was in her darkest moment. She was in her darkest time. It wasn't a moment, it was years. And she was so alone, she felt so alone. And Krishna kept trying to go close to her. He kept trying to go close, to speak to her, to tell her that he was with her, that he loved her, that she wasn't alone, to keep her head up, to keep fighting. But she was so deep in her pain that she couldn't see him and she couldn't hear him. So he wrote her a letter on the petals of a golden lotus. And he blew that lotus to her on the breeze. And as she sat under the trees, it fell in her lap. And she saw this golden lotus in her lap, and she thought, what is this? And she picked it up, and she saw that something was written on the petals. And this is what was written there. Krishna wrote to Draupadi, Priya Sakhi. Priya means my beloved. Sakhi means female friend. He said, Priya Sakhi, for you I am all that touches the soul, uplifts it, mingles it with infinity. that spreads out, pervading creation, preservation, and destruction in the cosmos. In the midst of creation, destruction, and life, the bond between you and me is inviolable, unbreakable. Look at this lotus. The sun is in the sky, but in the water, the lotus waits. It finds the sun in the water. When the sun is reflected in the water, then it is on that reflection that it sheds its petals. The fulfillment of its life lies just in this. I am being reflected in your heart. He who does not regard my reflection as me cannot find me. He who finds me has me reflected within him. Sakhi, that which is the mantra of your dawn is also the music of your evening worship. I am near you. Why do you fear? He signs his letter, your lifelong sadhana sakha. Sadhana means your spiritual practice. Sakha means your male friend. He says, your lifelong sadhana sakha. She read this letter. She wept. And then she wrote him a letter back. She wrote him a letter on the petals of a Gethiki flower. She said, Sakha, Lord of my heart, for you, I am a garden where flowers bloom. They do not know why they bloom. Sometimes the flowers wither away. Why they wither, this too they do not know. A flower knows this much, that it withers even for the same person for whom it bloomed. So the fulfillment of a blooming flower and the pain of a withered one are offered to the same person. That person is you. He whom I seek in you is none other than you. You are my Krishna. You pervade the world. You are far above hope and desire. You are my Sakha. Whether you are mine or not, I am yours, yours. That is what is in my heart. When I first read this in that book, I was seated in a swing on a balcony in my sister's house in India. And I was seated in the open air and I was reading this book, and it was a good job that I was sitting down because the blood rushed to my head so fast, I almost fainted. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, I literally almost fainted, and I started doing this, and I had to reach out and grab myself, and there's like little lights in the, like, behind my eyes, and I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna faint. I've never fainted in my life. But it was that powerful to me because it was like literally reading the words that are in my heart on paper, because they were the words of her heart too. And so growing up, I always knew the story of Draupadi, and she was always an inspiration to me. And in our history, we have so many powerful women of color that most people in the West don't even know about. They have no understanding of how the wisdom that has been brought forward to today, that still survives today, survives because of women like Draupadi. And she lived 5,000 years ago. And we have so many powerful women of color, queer and trans people of color, indigenous women who are doing this work, who we are so fortunate and so honored to do this work with. And so when you support me, it means that I'm able to take that support and directly plug it in to uplifting those voices that I know need to be heard. The voices that give messages like this. So thank you so much. Thank you for being my community. Thank you for showing up with love, with heart, with soul. when I do my yoga sessions, I don't do my yoga sessions as a CSO. It's not connected to my platform as a CSO. I do those sessions because one of my gurus commanded me to do so. And he requested it. A request from a guru is a command. That's what you have to understand. I didn't understand it at first. Then I was like, oh. And what a lot of people don't actually understand is that I do those sessions as a form of anti-patriarchy training. And most people don't know. If you haven't been to a session, you wouldn't understand that. But I ask you to come because I don't do them just to sit around and talk about stories. I do them to sit around and talk about stories like Draupadi's because we can learn a great deal about how to smash patriarchy from the women and men and gender non-conforming divine sparks of our history and our ancient history and our ancient wisdom. That's why I do it. And so even though I don't do it under the CSO platform, I'm just mentioning that because I urge and invite you all to take part in your own healing, to take responsibility for that healing, and to show up, because not only is it about your healing, it's about the healing of our community, it's about the healing of our movement, it's about the healing of Mother Earth. And she needs us. She is bleeding. She's bleeding from more wounds than we know. And so are we. So are we. Until you actually begin the process of healing, you yourself do not know how many wounds you are bleeding from. I know because I have learned this in myself. I know because this whole life is a spiritual journey. And at each moment, we're all going to have these realizations. We're all going to start to learn things about ourselves. It's better to get a head start on that because we don't have time. And it's funny and it's also not funny. And so I invite you to show up to that. And I invite you to show up to the things that are explicitly anti-patriarchy, like when I gave the keynote at the Engaging Men conference last weekend. The work that Women of Color Speak Out is doing and continues to do, beginning these men's circles, these anti-patriarchy circles. We formed a white male circle too. We formed several men of color circles in different areas. There in Rainier Beach for the last year, our farm has been holding a healing circle for boys at Rainier Beach High School where they have been actively dismantling patriarchy. Using my videos, using these resources that we've shared with them. They've been doing that work. These teenagers, these youth, if they can get a head start on it, we can too. Because they are doing so much work that is invisible. But that doesn't mean that it's not important. It is the foundation of everything that must be done. So I encourage you all to take part in that. I encourage you all to be present in that. And not only be present in that, actively go out and seek it and actively share it with others. And not in a culturally appropriative, bastardized way where you go and then tell people that you're going to set yourself up as a guru. No, not like that. Don't do that. Always cite your sources. Always let people know where you got this knowledge from and where they can go to get further wisdom, right? That's really important. It's really important. And make sure that when you speak, you bring the voices of the ancestors into that moment, that you hearken back to those ancestors and you say, this is where this came from. This is where this practice came from. This is where this wisdom came from. Whether it was a movement, whether it was a scripture, whether it was a story, whether it was the native land that you're on. It's really important to do that. And this is all part of the steps that we need to learn when we take anti-patriarchy training. I've spoken so often, and I'm sure you've heard me say it in different videos and events and rallies and marches and whatever, but patriarchy is the root of all evil. Why? Because all of the systems of patriarchy come from there. Why? Because patriarchy comes from the ego. And the ego convinces you that you exist. And that's a good thing, because you existed. You should know that, right? It's necessary. If you didn't know that you existed, you wouldn't eat, you wouldn't sleep, you wouldn't talk, you wouldn't survive, you wouldn't be able to take care of yourself. So it's good that you know that you exist. However, the ego takes it further and convinces you that you exist and you are your body. That's where the problem is. The ego convinces you that you are your body, but you are not your body. You are something much more than that. But because we think that we're our body, we think, oh, I'm in this white body, so it's my right to dominate people of color. You think, oh, I'm in this cis male body, so it's my right to dominate people who are not cis males. You think, oh, I'm in this straight body, so it's my right to dominate people who are not straight. You think, oh, I'm in this rich body, so it's my right to dominate people who are not rich. And I'm going to take, and I'm going to colonize, and I'm going to take whatever I can from my body, because that's my number one priority. But when we understand that that root problem is called patriarchy, we understand how to actually fundamentally dismantle all of the systems of oppression, whether you're talking about racism, whether you're talking about colonialism, whether you're talking about capitalism, whether you're talking about ableism, right? I'm in this able-bodied person, therefore I'm able to dominate people who perhaps are not able-bodied in various ways, right? I'm in this human body, therefore I'm able to dominate people who are not human. That's another form of ableism. It's called speciesism, right? These are systems of oppression that have led to the chaotic point that we're at of climate chaos and mass extinction, right? That is the powerful work that must be done. And it's not going to happen until we dismantle our patriarchy, until we dismantle our internalized oppression, until we come together as a community and hold each other and support each other, because it's not going to be easy. Earlier this evening, we had to call out people in our own community, a group, a well-known nonprofit in our own community that we work with on a regular basis, right? We had to call them out. Why? Because if we don't do that work, harm will continue to happen, and the most vulnerable people will continue to be hurt. What are we doing this movement for if not to protect the most vulnerable people? What are we doing this movement for if not to speak up for the voices of Mother Earth and to uplift those voices so that they can speak for themselves? We're not going to be able to do that work if sexual predators are allowed to roam in our movement, right? We're not going to be able to do that work. And we're not going to be able to do that work if people protect those sexual predators and then they're allowed to continue in their positions of power. No, that needs to be taken down. That needs to be immediately stopped so that the voices that need to be heard are uplifted, right? And everyone thinks it's great until it happens to them. Everyone thinks it's great until they get called out, right? I've been called out. I've been called out for not supporting Black women enough. I've been called out for my caste privilege, right? I come from a Brahmin caste. That means I have caste privilege. I got called out because they were like, you're not bringing it up enough. And I was like, you're right. You're right. I'm not bringing it up enough. You're right. Maybe I'm not supporting Black women enough. I need to be more conscious of that. I need to be continuously looking for ways that I can be a better sister in this movement, right? It's not easy to face your own internal privileges. It's not easy to face your own issues. But if we don't do that, we cannot say that we are acting out of love, right? That means we have to dismantle our ego, because your ego is a spiritual problem and it can only be fixed with spiritual solution. So we have to dismantle that ego. When you're called out, accept when you're called out. Listen, respond in a positive, loving way. And that will create such an environment of health and rejuvenation. You'll be that garden where flowers grow, right? And I know, because we've seen it within Women of Color Speak Out, when we've had to call each other out and say, this is what's in my heart, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm seeing. And we've had to sit and listen to each other and hear it with love, right? It doesn't just happen. What we do doesn't just happen. We do the work. And then we go out and we speak publicly about that work, because this work can't be done behind closed doors. That sexual predator only was allowed to continue for as long as he continued because white men kept trying to close the door on it. Right? It has to be called out, it has to be public. Because if it's not public, the people who are most marginalized will not realize it's safe for them to speak. Right? They won't know. They won't know it's safe for them to be here. They won't know that it's safe for all of us to be who we truly are. Right? And I want all of us to be safe. I want all of us to be safe. The way Draupadi wanted to be safe. I want to be safe. And if I want to be safe, I know all of you want to be safe. And if I know all of us want to be safe, I know Mother Earth wants to be safe. She wants to be safe. So I'm going to thank you all for being here once again. And I'm going to thank Mother Earth for her nurturing, for her love, for her unconditional love, in spite of all of our mistakes, in spite of all of our failures, in spite of all of the ways that we have failed to show up. And I'm going to pledge to her and to you and to Krishna that I'm going to do better. I'm going to keep showing up. Whether, I'm able to pay my rent or not, I'm going to keep showing up because that is my duty. And it is not about whether or not I get thanked, although the love and the thanks and the support that I get from all of you humbles me. The truth is, none of us should be doing this from thanks. We should be doing it because it is our righteous duty. And she needs us. Thank you all. Just a second. I just realized. All of the speakers who are here or still here, if you could come up as I call your name, I have a small token of appreciation for each of you. Yin, my sister. You know I love you, hon. Afrin. I remember when we've been working with Afrin for several months, she said, none of you are pronouncing my name right. Afrin. And we were like, oh no, that's bad. And we have since been pronouncing it correctly. Afrin, everyone. Yes, I do. I will. Oh, wait. Okay, never mind. Patty, Afrin's got yours. It doesn't matter, it's the same thing. Tomas is headed out, and Charles is headed out. Annette, Granny Annette. Thank you, sweetheart. Thank you. Yeah, that's Amanda, right over here. By the way, everyone, Amanda is an incredible lawyer. We have need of those in our movement. I myself have had a few conversations with some lawyers in the movement. And Amanda is someone who has such heart, and I have seen it reflected in her and the work that she does and has done in the animal liberation movement, that speciesism work, dismantling that speciesism, that ableism, and dismantling the prison industrial complex, and the solidarity with people of color that I have seen in her has touched me so deeply. And it's given me renewed faith in white people and white women. And that is not a joke, that's for real, okay? So I want to bring that into the room. And Derek, my brother. Thank you. I love you. Someone who's not here today, and a little bit out of place. I should have mentioned it earlier. Abby's not here. I wish she were here. But one lawyer who we worked with on the Delta 5 trial, when we did the Delta 5 action, his name was Jim Rowe. That trial would not have happened without conversations that I had with Jim Rowe about the Delta 5 action. It would not have happened. And he passed away a few months before the trial. And we were really extremely sad to lose him. The whole world was extremely sad to lose him. But he was one of those incredible people. Just incredible people. And so I just want to honor his name, because those lawyers and those incredible, supportive men who share their skills and their expertise. And he was so excited when we were going to go to trial, because he said to me, you know, I always advise people to go to trial. Always. And no one ever listens to me. We'll see whether or not you listen. And I was like, I'm going to listen. I'm totally going to listen. You're my lawyer. I'm shutting up. I know when to speak and when to shut the hell up, okay? If only these white people would understand that. And I listened to what he said, and I shared that, what was in my heart, and those people who locked down at the Delta 5 action, they were like, that makes sense to us, and we want to listen to our lawyer, that makes sense, that sounds good. And that's why that happened. And so I just want to honor that and just let him know, Jim, we miss you. We miss you. Thank you.
So I have the honor of sharing to lead us in a closing. Is it fair to say ceremony? For those of you who were here a year and a half ago, this will be similar to the one we did before. So this is going to be involve audience participation. So we're going to, after I finish explaining, I'm going to invite us to do the following things. First, if we could push the chairs to the side or stack them into the corner. Do you want the pillows to remain?
We can just stand on the pillows, yeah.
Okay.
The pillows can remain.
Keep the pillows, all right.
We can actually just throw them on the side.
Okay, we're going to remove the chairs and the pillows, and then we're going to invoke the lotus petal that Zarna spoke so beautifully of. So we're going to invoke that so that we are connected to the story. So we'll get into concentric circles as we self-organize. So let's go ahead and do that. And we'll reconvene for that closing in just a minute.
Thanks everyone for joining online. Bye.
Oops.